I found out my husband had a second phone, but the truth behind it was worse than cheating. Sometimes the worst part about discovering a secret isn't the lie itself. It's realizing how long someone looked you in the eyes while hiding it from you. And honestly, I thought I already knew what I was going to find. I thought it was another woman. But the truth ended up changing the way I looked at my marriage completely. The first time I noticed the phone, it was almost nothing. Ryan was in the shower, and his jacket was hanging over the kitchen chair. His regular phone was already charging on the counter beside me. So when I heard a vibration coming from his pocket, I frowned immediately. At first, I thought maybe it was my phone, but it wasn't. I reached into his jacket casually, and there it was. A second phone. Black case. No wallpaper. No notifications visible. For a second, I just stared at it in my hand. My chest tightened instantly. Because honestly, there's only one reason married people hide second phones. Or at least, that's what I believed at the time. I quickly put it back exactly where I found it the second I heard the shower turn off. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe normally anymore. Ryan walked into the kitchen a minute later looking completely relaxed. Completely normal. Meanwhile, my mind was already falling apart. "You okay?" he asked while pouring coffee. I nodded too quickly. Yeah. Lie. The rest of the morning felt strange. I kept watching him without trying to. Every movement suddenly looked suspicious. When he checked his regular phone, I wondered if he was hiding messages on the other one. When he smiled at something, I wondered who he was talking to. When he left for work, I sat in silence replaying everything in my head. And honestly, part of me almost preferred not knowing, because suspicion is horrible. But confirmation changes your life permanently. Ryan and I had been married for 11 years. We weren't perfect, but I never thought we were unhappy. At least, not unhappy enough for this. That night, I barely slept. Every time Ryan moved beside me, my mind went back to the second phone. The next morning, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Maybe it belonged to work. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I was overreacting. Then I saw him hide it. We were eating breakfast quietly when his regular phone rang on the counter. At the same exact moment, I noticed panic flash across his face. Not annoyance. Not confusion. Panic. He stood up so quickly he almost knocked over his coffee. "I forgot something in the car," he muttered, and before I could respond, he rushed outside. I watched him through the kitchen window. Ryan opened the driver's door, looked around nervously, then pulled out the second phone. My stomach dropped instantly, because people only act like that when they're hiding something serious. That entire day, I couldn't focus on anything. Not work, not television, not even basic conversations. My mind kept filling in blanks on its own. Another woman, a secret relationship, affair messages, maybe even another family. By evening, I had already emotionally prepared myself for betrayal. But weirdly, Ryan acted more affectionate than usual that night. He brought home my favorite takeout, asked about my day, even sat beside me during a movie instead of scrolling his phone. And honestly, that somehow made it worse, because guilt changes people. And suddenly every kind gesture felt suspicious too. Later that night, Ryan fell asleep on the couch while the TV played quietly in the background. That's when I noticed it. The second phone, half visible inside his work bag near the couch. And for the first time, I had the chance to look through it. My hands were shaking as I slowly reached for the bag. Because deep down, I already knew my life was about to change. I just had no idea how much. Natalie unlocks the second phone expecting to find proof of cheating, but the first message she reads leaves her completely shocked. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Ryan was still asleep on the couch. The television played softly in the background. Everything looked normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. For a second, I just stared at the screen. Locked. I honestly didn't expect it to open, but then I remembered something. Ryan used the same passcode for almost everything. Birthdays, bank cards, old phones. My chest tightened as I slowly typed in our wedding date. The screen unlocked immediately, and suddenly, I wished it hadn't. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. I opened the messages first, because honestly, I thought I already knew what I was about to see. Another woman. Secret conversations. Hotel reservations. Instead, the first message I saw made absolutely no sense. She still doesn't know anything. I frowned immediately. The next message was worse. "You need to tell her before this gets out of control." My stomach dropped. Tell me what? I kept scrolling faster. The messages weren't romantic. There were no hearts, no flirting, no pictures. It was mostly conversations between Ryan and someone saved as Mark. At first, I didn't recognize the name. Then suddenly, I did. Mark was Ryan's older cousin. The same cousin he barely spoke about. The same cousin nobody in the family liked discussing. I sat frozen on the floor while reading message after message. And slowly, confusion turned into something worse. Fear. Because whatever this secret was, it was big enough that multiple people already knew about it. Except me. Then I found the message that changed everything. "If Natalie finds out where the money actually went, she'll never forgive you." Money? My mind immediately raced. Ryan and I had been having financial problems for almost a year. Nothing extreme, but enough to cancel vacations. Enough to delay fixing things around the house. Enough for Ryan to constantly talk about unexpected expenses. I always believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. My fingers felt numb while I kept scrolling. Then I saw screenshots, bank transfers, large amounts, thousands of dollars, sent repeatedly to Mark. Over and over. I stared at the numbers in disbelief, because suddenly, everything started making horrible sense. The stress, the secrecy, the second phone, the missing money. But why would Ryan hide financial help from me like this? And more importantly, why did it feel bigger than that? Then I opened the voice messages. I probably shouldn't have, but at that point I already knew I wasn't sleeping that night anyway. The first message was short. Mark sounded panicked. I can't keep covering this up forever. Then Ryan's voice answered calmly. She can't know right now. My chest tightened instantly. The next voice message made my stomach turn. You promised me you'd stop after the last time. Last time? I felt physically sick now, because this no longer sounded like simple financial help. It sounded like damage control. Then finally, I heard the sentence that completely changed everything. She can never find out about your father. I froze. My father-in-law? What did he have to do with any of this? I replayed the message 3 times. Maybe 4, because surely I misunderstood. But I didn't. Suddenly, memories started flooding back. Ryan's father moving in with us temporarily last year after business problems. Ryan constantly covering for him. Strange late-night arguments behind closed doors. And then the biggest memory of all. 6 months ago, Ryan asked if we could take money out of our savings temporarily. It's just until Dad gets back on his feet, he said. I trusted him completely. But now I realized something terrifying. That money never came back. And apparently, that wasn't even the full truth. I kept scrolling desperately looking for answers. But every message only made things more confusing. Then suddenly, I heard movement behind me. My entire body froze. Ryan. I looked up slowly, and there he was, standing in the hallway, looking directly at the phone in my hands. The color immediately drained from his face. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then quietly, almost like he already knew everything was over, Ryan said, "You weren't supposed to see that." Not, "What are you doing?" Not, "Give me my phone." Not even, "It's not what you think." Just, "You weren't supposed to see that." And somehow, that terrified me more than any affair ever could have. Ryan finally admits the truth about the secret phone, and Natalie realizes the betrayal inside her marriage goes far deeper than she ever imagined. Ryan stood frozen in the hallway. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. The second phone still felt heavy in my hands while my heart pounded so hard it almost hurt. Finally, I stood up slowly. "What is this?" I asked quietly. Ryan looked exhausted suddenly. Not angry. Not defensive. Just tired. And honestly, that scared me more. Because guilty people panic. People hiding something bigger look defeated. Ryan rubbed his face with both hands before sitting down heavily on the edge of the couch. "Natalie," his voice cracked slightly. And at that moment I knew. Whatever this was, it had been destroying him for a long time too. I crossed my arms tightly. "Start talking." Ryan stared at the floor for a few seconds, then finally said the one thing I never expected. "My dad has a gambling problem." The room went completely silent. I blinked at him slowly. "What?" Ryan swallowed hard. "He's had one for years," he admitted quietly. I genuinely thought I misheard him, because my father-in-law didn't seem like that kind of person. He was calm, quiet, responsible, or at least, that's the version everyone wanted me to believe. "He got into debt again last year," Ryan continued, "and it got worse than anyone realized." Suddenly, memories started rearranging themselves in my head. The financial stress, the business problems, the constant emergencies. It wasn't business. It was debt. Huge debt. "How much?" I asked softly. Ryan hesitated too long. That was my first warning. "How much?" I repeated. His eyes finally met mine. "Almost 80,000. I physically sat down because my legs suddenly felt weak. $80,000. I couldn't even process the number properly. "That's impossible," I whispered. Ryan looked away immediately. "I tried to handle it before you found out." "Handle it?" I laughed quietly in disbelief. "You drained our savings." "I was going to put it back." "With what money, Ryan?" He didn't answer, because there wasn't an answer. And suddenly, everything hit me at once. The canceled vacations, the stress, the secrecy, the sleepless nights. My husband had been carrying another family's crisis on his shoulders while slowly destroying our future in the process. And the worst part? He never trusted me enough to tell me. "How long?" I asked. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. "Almost 2 years." 2 years. 2 years of lies. 2 years of pretending. 2 years of watching me make financial sacrifices without knowing why. I felt sick. You let me believe we were struggling because of normal expenses. I didn't want you to worry. That sentence made something inside me snap. Don't do that, I said sharply. Ryan looked startled. Don't pretend this was about protecting me. The room fell silent again. Because this wasn't protection, I continued quietly. This was you making huge decisions behind my back because you didn't trust me enough to face reality with you. Ryan stared at me helplessly. You don't understand how bad things got, he whispered. No, I replied softly. Because you never let me. That hurt him. I could see it immediately. But honestly, I was too emotionally exhausted to soften the truth anymore. Ryan leaned forward with both hands clasped tightly together. My dad begged me not to tell anyone. I laughed bitterly. So instead you destroyed your marriage quietly? I thought I could fix it. That's the problem, Ryan, I said. You keep trying to save everyone alone. The second those words left my mouth, we both realized this wasn't only about the money anymore. It never was. This was the same pattern that had existed our entire marriage. Ryan carrying everyone else's problems. Ryan sacrificing everything for family. Ryan deciding what burdens I was allowed to know about. And me? I was always the person expected to quietly adjust afterward. Tears filled Ryan's eyes unexpectedly. I didn't know what else to do. And honestly, for the first time all night, I believed him completely. That's what made this so painful. Ryan wasn't malicious. He wasn't living a secret romantic life. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He just spent so many years trying to rescue everyone else that he stopped realizing how badly he was hurting us. I sat there quietly staring at the second phone in my hands, and suddenly it didn't even matter anymore, because the phone wasn't the real betrayal. The real betrayal was realizing my husband would rather drown alone than trust me enough to stand beside him. And honestly, I didn't know how to fix that. Ryan looked at me carefully, almost afraid. What happens now? He asked quietly. I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could, someone knocked on the front door. Ryan's face changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. Then his phone started ringing at the same exact moment, and when he looked at the screen, the color completely disappeared from his face. It's my dad, he whispered. When Ryan opens the front door, Natalie finally comes face to face with the full truth behind the family secret and realizes their lives are about to change permanently. Ryan stared at his phone like he already knew something was wrong. The knocking at the front door came again, louder this time. My chest tightened instantly. Ryan, I whispered. What's happening? But he didn't answer. He stood up too quickly and walked toward the door while still staring at the screen. I followed behind him instinctively. For one horrible second, I thought maybe debt collectors were outside, or police, or someone connected to the gambling mess. But when Ryan finally opened the door, everything became strangely quiet. His father stood there alone. And honestly, he looked nothing like the calm, composed man I'd known for years. I should have told you, he admitted quietly. I was scared. I nodded slowly. I know, and that was true. The problem was, fear doesn't erase consequences. Ryan walked closer carefully, almost unsure if he still had the right to. I don't want this to destroy us, he said. That sentence broke my heart a little, because I realized something painful. This situation didn't destroy us overnight. It happened slowly, through secrecy, through emotional distance, through years of Ryan carrying burdens alone instead of trusting me enough to share them. I need time, I admitted quietly. Ryan nodded immediately. No argument, no defensiveness. And honestly, that was the first time in a very long time he truly listened to me. Over the next few months, things changed slowly. Not magically, not perfectly. Ryan started therapy. His father entered gambling treatment. And for the first time in our marriage, Ryan stopped trying to solve every crisis alone. Some days were still hard. Some trust was still broken. But little by little, honesty started replacing secrecy. And honestly, that mattered more than perfection ever could. Because relationships don't survive by pretending problems don't exist. They survive when two people finally stop hiding from each other. Honestly, I think what hurt Natalie the most wasn't the money. It was realizing her husband didn't trust her enough to let her stand beside him during the worst parts of his life. And sometimes emotional distance hurts deeper than betrayal people can actually see. But I also think this story shows something real. People can love each other deeply and still damage their relationship without meaning to. The question is whether honesty comes before it's too late. What would you have done in Natalie's situation?